The reason I've selected the subject of Tibetan Buddhism is that it has some very remarkable aspects to it, which exemplify the coming together of the domains that we usually separate as spiritual and material. There is an aspect of Tibetan Buddhism which is called by the Sanskrit word tantric. That's the adjective, the anglicized adjective of tantra, T-A-N-T-R-A, the basic meaning of which is a web. And the secondary meaning is continuity. Because when you have weaving, you notice that there's a pattern, and it appears that the parts of the weaving, supposing you've woven a bird on the one side of it, it looks as if the bird stands there all by itself, but if you turn it over, you see that the threads which make up the bird are continuous with the whole thing. It runs underneath, and so you get a total piece of weaving. So, in the same way, when in everyday life we perceive things, we see them as if they were disconnected, as if they stood out alone in space and were things in a world rattling around like peas in a pod or something like that. But there is another point of view from which, looking at it, as it were, from the underside, you will discover the continuity of all individuals. Whatever kind of individual you're thinking about, whether you're thinking about a human individual or a pebble or an insect or a mountain, there's a point of view from which you can see their continuity, a meaning of Tantra, with the whole thing. And there are many ways in which the Buddhism of Tibet has exemplified this, and so that's why I'm going to talk about it. But now, having discussed a few things with you, I see we've got to begin on a rather fundamental level of what Buddhism is about. First of all, Buddhism differs radically from almost any form of religion you will find in the West, because it's not based on the principle of belief. It doesn't have any doctrines you're supposed to believe in. The approach of Buddhism is entirely experimental. That is to say, it is interested not in ideas. The ideas are quite incidental to Buddhism. It's interested in the transformation of human consciousness. So that the absolutely basic thing in Buddhism is this: how do you experience your own existence? If you experience your own existence as being an area of sensitivity, a source of action locked up inside your own skin, the Buddhist would say you are a victim of a hallucination. This hallucination has come about through many, many ways, but largely through a sort of social indoctrination. That is, in other words, a phony way of experiencing life, your own life. And so being a hallucination, an illusion, one could wake up from it and experience your existence as it truly is, that is to say, as being a function of, an activity of, the entire universe. So that the meaning of myself is utterly changed. Ordinarily, myself means a particular individual, maybe a sort of soul or ego living inside the bag of skin. But after the experience of awakening, myself comes to mean the ground of being, the basic, eternal, infinitely fruitful reality. So, to be awakened is the concern of Buddhism, and of course, therefore, the word Buddha means a person who has woken up, who is no longer under the illusion of separateness, what is called Sakaya Drishti. The Buddha, as a historical character, is therefore a representative of an entire class of beings who appear in the world every so often, or whom one grows into being. It's not a proper name, it's a title. The man who woke up, who is no longer hypnotized. See, when you put a beak of a chicken on a chalk line, the chicken stays stuck to the chalk line. So in the same way, when you put the nose of a baby on a certain track, which is what we call the ego, it gets stuck there. And it's a form of hypnosis. And to wake up from this is to be a Buddha. So the person we call the Buddha, Gautama Siddhartha, was the son of a prince living close to Nepal in northern India shortly after 600 BC, is simply one of many, many Buddhas, but one who taught in an extremely effective way, as a result of which he founded a school, an order of disciples, and this grew and grew and grew and grew until it expanded all over the world. But the principle of Buddhism is a transformation of your sense of identity. So it has, as it were, it delineates two states. One it calls samsara, and the other it calls nirvana. Samsara means the round. The appropriate American translation is the rat race. A way of living in a vicious circle. So that, for example, the more you succeed in anything, say you succeed economically, you get hung up on it. The more you succeed, the more you have to succeed to keep the thing going. And you get full of anxiety. You think that you're going to solve your life problems by getting rich, and you succeed. But you find that the game isn't worth the candle because it's too much responsibility. And you're worrying whether somebody's going to take it away from you. Or if you solve the problem of finances, you suddenly get the problem of health, and you start worrying whether you're going to get sick. Samsara is nothing fails like success. And the samsara is divided into 6 regions. There are, first of all, the supremely successful beings. They're called angels, deva in Sanskrit. There are, opposite them, below, at the bottom of the wheel, the supremely unsuccessful beings, and they're called the narakas. We would say they live in purgatory. There are 2 purgatories. There's a hot one and a cold one, and they adjoin each other. Then we might say next, going from the top, going clockwise around the wheel, next to the successful people, the angels, the angry people. They're called Ashura. And they're represented as spirits of cosmic violence. Giants who are, as it were, the embodiments of thunderstorms and earthquakes and tornadoes. Next to them are the animals. All kinds of animals whatsoever. Then again the narakas, we're down to the bottom. Then coming up again, next to the narakas, there are the pretas. And they are the tormented beings who are frustrated. They have very large bellies and tiny mouths. Immense appetite with very little means of satisfying it. Then next to them, going up again, are the humans. And the humans occupy a more or less middle position, that is to say, as middle as you can get in this kind of 6-fold configuration. And it's said that if you want to become a Buddha, if you want to become awakened, you must start from the human position. So do you see what's happening? The state of Buddhahood is not in the 6-fold classification. There are gods and angels in the 6-fold classification, but according to Buddhist ideas, gods and angels are still within the samsara. They're still in the rat race. They have succeeded, but success implies failure. If you go as high as you can get, you're going to come down again. A Buddha is one who is free from the wheel, and you can represent that as being either at the center of the wheel, the still point of the turning world, the eye of the hurricane where it's calm, or off the wheel altogether. In Tibetan Buddhism, when you have paintings of the wheel, you find not only is there often a Buddha at the center, but there is a Buddha in each domain. As it were, in the center of each domain, there is a Buddha appropriate to that part. And he represents the idea that you can be thoroughly involved in the wheel, and yet at the same time not involved. You can be in the world but not